Welcome into KFJB-TV After Dark. I'm Brandon Lewis, joined by head football coach for Marshalltown Bobcat football, Adam Goodvin. And Coach, I talked to you about coming on KFJB-TV After Dark a little bit, and I said I normally am used to you coaching track, but I didn't see your name on there, and that's because you made an addition to the two deep roster, I guess, in the offseason, right?
Yeah, we got 3 of them now. So that's taken up a lot of my time this spring, but, it's been fun.
Yeah. One of the things, my daughter Phoebe turned 2 just a few months ago. And, man, I tell you what, out of all the accomplishments, and I'm sure you maybe feel the same way too, like on the football field and everything coaching wise, the greatest accomplishment in my life is being a dad so far. And it's just, it's a wonderful experience.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. You're spot on. 2 is a fun age.
We went through potty training this past weekend, so
oh boy. Yeah, that's a process.
Yeah, that is for sure. And you're accustomed to the process, obviously, in football, and one of those is the schedule, and that's what I wanted to chat with you about a lot here. Is just looking at it. It's no different than it was a year ago. You just reverse the schedule, home and away. But homecoming is set. You're going to take on Des Moines East in week number 4 for that. You'll be at home against the Scarlets, who you defeated a year ago in one of the most superb games last year. We saw Tyler England with that long touchdown run. Those first 4 weeks of the season before you really get into your district grind, we saw last year you had a lot of momentum early on. You took down Ames week number 1. How important are those kind of first 4 games of the season to kind of assess your team and really kind of get that flow of you've got turnover, you've got new maybe a few new plays into the wrinkle, that kind of stuff. How important are those?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, I think I tell you all the time, we take it week by week, but in the grand scheme, I think it really sets the tone for the rest of that season. You want to play well early on, and with hopes that you continue to improve every single week, and things are really flowing, by that middle to second half of the season.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be on the road week number 1 for Ames, and last year that was a phenomenal game. They had a lot of turnover in their program last year. They'll have a little more consistency this year with that coaching staff coming back, obviously. You've got a lot going on in the offseason as far as your players kind of leading that angle. Walk me through a little bit of what the offseason looks like right now, as far as maybe some of those team leaders like Jamison Niehaus coming back, Tyler England, helping kind of lead what you would hope and want for them to kind of accomplish to get better.
Yeah. Our offseason's super busy, and a lot of that is because a lot of our guys are playing other sports, which is fantastic. That's something that's really important to us, and I think it's important to every coach in our athletic department. We had a ton of kids out for wrestling and basketball this winter, and we've got a lot out for track, and there's no substitute for competition. So that's great to see. And on top of that, our kids are in the weight room, with our school schedule every other day, all year long. So that's a new change that we're hoping to see some benefits from. We're really happy about how that's going. So more consistent training up there, along with speed work. And, from a football side of things, we try to keep it light, but keep their minds on it a little bit. So I know in February, we started with some morning skill work, just some individual drills that our kids know, like the back of their hands, stuff that we do in the fall every single day. We did those twice a week in February, and then in March we came in the mornings and switched to mat drills, which was down in the wrestling room, and that's more high intensity, nothing really to do with football whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Just kind of getting after it, following commands when you're tired, and really helps with team bonding. Just big group together, working hard, getting after it. That was a lot of fun, and then. This month we're transitioning into some morning open gym, player-led open gym type of environment in the mornings in the aux gym. So more skill related stuff. We're hopeful that we can maybe get out onto the game field in the mornings. We go twice a week again, so nothing too heavy because we know kids are competing on the track or on the field in soccer too. So again, the big purpose just keep their minds on it and give them the month of May off because it's busy. Baseball's starting up and track's ending and school's wrapping up. So kind of head into the summer on a high note and have prepare to have a really good summer.
You look at some of my favorite athletes of all time, John Elway. He was a two-sport athlete in college at Stanford. I also like Christian McCaffrey. They also both played baseball and football and went to Stanford, but being involved in other sports, you look at Aiden Smitherman, he was a heck of a return man for you last year. He also does track and, improving on that speed. So how important is that, you obviously want him to be focused on football, but obviously not shying away from being involved in those other sports, which could maybe help you in the long run?
Yeah, absolutely. And the competition, like I said, is the biggest thing. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was a coach talking about, I think it was a college coach talking about, recruiting high school athletes and, from a football standpoint. And he's like, I want a quarterback that's out there in the summers on the mound, with the 1-run lead in the bottom of the 7th inning, that you can't recreate that pressure. And, like I said, we want our kids out there competing in as many sports as possible because, in the grand scheme, you're not going to get these years back. You're not going to look back and regret, playing a sport. You're going to look back and regret not playing. So, it's good to see the multi-sport kids that we've got in our athletic department.
And the 4 years goes really fast. I don't think some of them realize. Yeah.
No.
A couple of years ago, I think it was 2-3 years ago, you kind of mentioned, as well as Alan Main, strength and conditioning coach, just about how you kind of wanted to revamp the whole offseason process because you felt like maybe kind of lacking on that end or falling behind some of the bigger schools or just other schools in general that you play against in that. And so I've heard a lot more and seen a lot more, and you've even talked about it. How would you kind of assess how that's kind of going as far as, kind of keeping up with where you want to be in that off-season training?
I think it's been huge so far. Like I said, we're getting our lifts in during the school day, and that really fits our clientele perfectly. It's kind of a must because you can get, it doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. You can get skill work done any other part of the time, any other part of the day. You can go to whether you have a sport practice or you go to the YMCA or wherever, you can get that skill work done in other areas throughout the day, and just dedicating school day to weight training and speed training has been I think it'll be a huge thing for us as far as improvement goes, and also transitioning to making it year round so kids are able to take it both semesters will be really big. I think dealing with high school kids, it's finding that consistency up in the weight room, building habits up there to really benefit them is probably our biggest challenge. They want things instantly, and that's just not how things work. So, I think with the structure we have in place that it'll improve.
One of those guys that I know is always been a leader in the weight room, Jackson Hinkle, and I know he did really well. I think it was a personal best in shot last week. I think it was. I know he recently committed to Coe College, which, they're a pretty good football program. They've got some history over there. Marv Levy went there. Can't remember, one of the Fox pregame guys, Fred Jackson, was for the Buffalo Bills. He went over there as well. So how important is having a guy like that who's going to go play at the next level, but then also being one of those team leaders and, I'm sure a guy that other players look up to?
Yeah. Jackson's kind of earned it himself. I mean, he really is a big weight room guy, and, it's hard to keep him out of there. I've got him early morning class every day still, and he's getting after it. And, he's a guy that we got to remind to go through his his entire sets and reps. Because I mean, he likes to put heavy weight on and really amp himself up to lift heavy weight. But he does a good job, and I do think it feeds, others feed off of that energy in there. And I think he's just an example of being consistent and how that can benefit a student athlete.
Back to the 2026 football schedule, your district is set every 2 years. So you're just going to go through and play the same district opponents with Cedar Rapids, Kennedy, Waukee, DCG, Waterloo West, Dowling in the mix as well. And then next spring is when you'll kind of reconfigure the districts in 5A and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of wanted to ask you, we've talked a little bit about districting and the 5A and how that's kind of figured out. Do you feel like there'll be any more changes? Because I think the last cycle they increased the percentage of free and reduced. They increased it to 40%, which would kind of figure into your overall enrollment and what class you're in. Do you see any changes on the horizon, or do you think that'll just kind of stay to this status?
There's coaches and people all around the state constantly talking about how to make things better, and I don't know if anything will stick. This last go around they made the change as far as playing everybody in your district, which prior to that there was that tier system that's extremely difficult to explain to somebody that's unsure how that works. But I thought that was a pretty good structure that they had in place. So if they go back to that would be make a lot of sense. But as far as I know right now, we're going to stick to the same structure we have right now.
Yeah. And the easiest way to explain it is if you are even, you're going to play someone who's a little more even on your level instead of, we saw, I think it was Waukee Northwest played Des Moines East, and it was like 70-0, I think was the final score. I mean, that doesn't really benefit anyone, right?
No, not often.
No.
I think that same week you had Southeast Polk and Ottumwa with similar scores. And I mean, you got that when you play everybody in your district, the way we're set up right now. And, if they go back to the tiered system, you avoid that a little bit. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I mean, you look at girls and boys basketball as well. I think girls was 5 out of the 8 or 6 out of the 8 were from the CIML, and the boys was 5 out of 8, I believe, out of the CIML. When you see some of those, the big Des Moines metro schools just kind of dominating. I mean, Southeast Polk won it the first 4 years in Class 5A when they changed over. So, do you almost feel like those schools are kind of in a class of their own where, you look at some of the bottom teams in the 5A, you look at, Des Moines East being one of those, Ottumwa also in that class, maybe necessarily having even the top 16 schools being in their own class for 5A.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my own opinions on it. And
we don't want to get you in any trouble.
My perfect system of how things should be. And that's the thing. Everybody else in the state's got that too. And in reality, I don't think there is a perfect system that's going to please everybody. Those, I could probably count on one hand, realistically, I suppose, the schools that have a really solid chance at winning a state championship next fall. But you look at the rest of the country too. I mean, there's some states that are in worse situations than we are as far as competitive balance goes. And, it's really out of our control at the end of the day. We just got to keep working and continue to improve, and things will work itself out.
Yeah. I always like to read the weekly coach emails that get sent out from the High School Athletic Association, and they always reference the NFL and NCAA rules are different than the high school rules. And is it kind of challenging when, maybe you watch the professional leagues and then also knowing, hey, we've got a different set of rules here in Iowa, and kind of being up on that angle as far as coaching goes?
There's some little things that you've got to remember don't apply to the high school level. That's what you see on Sundays. And, we've discussed some of that in staff meetings too. Is that a rule? We got to look this up, and But a lot of by now we've got it figured out. I think for the most part, I think as far as rule changes at the high school level, a lot of it right now is equipment based, focused. You see kids that like to wear the two mouthpieces, and that's got to go away because it makes no sense. And
where's that other one going?
Yeah, I don't know, but those are the only really new rule changes I've seen for this coming year. Just some minor equipment changes.
Like last year was the Guardian cap. That was kind of a new one.
Yeah. A lot of safety things as well. I think another one I saw this year was you can wear like wristbands on your belt now, whereas in the past you haven't been able to for whatever reason. I didn't understand that. We tried to do that a few years ago, and some officials would allow it, and assuming they just didn't know the rules. But I don't know, things like that really don't make a difference in the game.
Yeah, because you guys are a perfect example. Almost everybody, all 11 out there on offense are always wearing a wristband. You check the play to the sideline, and everybody kind of goes from there, right?
Yeah. That's our way of communicating in our play call. Yep.
What we deem the cat claw. I don't know. What do you guys call the cat claw? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we call it the cat claw.
You do? Okay.
No, I'm assuming you're talking about the quarterback sneaks.
Yeah, the tush push.
Yeah, we call it goose.
Okay,
don't ask me why, but it's we call it goose. We love it.
We love the cat claw because it seems to work 95% of the time. I think there was maybe one time last year that it wasn't successful. But you look at that play. I know that was kind of highlighted in the rules too. Knowing the boundary of it. You can push the pile, but you can't have two hands. Those little things, I'm sure you kind of coach your guys up on to make sure that play is executed, and you did a heck of a job of it last year.
Yeah, you have to stay low and come off the football, and quarterback's got to secure the ball and stay low and drive his legs, and lean on somebody and don't go down. And as far as aiding the runner or whatever, sometimes it gets called, sometimes it doesn't. I know our guys can't grab on and assist them and pull them further. So everything else is kind of free game and get what you can. We like to do that on a once our quarterback touches the center, that's when that ball snapped to try to catch the defense off guard, and instead of going through our normal cadence. And like you said, we've had some success with it. Hopefully we can continue to get better.
Yeah, last year, the second year of your flex bone, and talking with you, your flex bone offense, kind of that third year is when you really see a lot of what you want to see as far as production goes on the field. You ran for 1,500 yards the first year of it. You go for 2,206 rushing yards last year in your second year of the flex bone, which was sixth best in 5A. How do you feel like year three? How is that really going to show? How are players really going to grasp the offense and maybe lead to even more production?
Yeah. Like you said, everyone, that runs this offense says year three is when it hits. And, we'll see. I think these guys are just becoming more familiar with it. We're repping it every single day. They're starting to see the big picture. I think back to year one, and it was just everyone was kind of in their own bubble. They wanted to know their assignment, and we got by with it. But I think now, like I said, guys are understanding the entire concepts at a completely different level. So, I talk all the time about quarterback's eyes and discipline and trusting reads and things like that. And not only him, but like our offensive line understands where to position their bodies to put our backs in positions to, make bigger plays than we had seen, the first 1 or 2 years. So, we just got to keep at it and teaching the heck out of them and getting them to comprehend what we're trying to accomplish. And, I'm hopeful that we'll see a big jump here in year three. I know we got to be a heck of a lot more efficient in our passing game than we were. When it's there, we got to take advantage of that. So that's going to be a big point of emphasis that I anticipate can really take our offense to the level that it should be at.
Yeah, with that, I mean, you saw Jamison Niehaus with some huge runs and Tyler England as well with those fakes and those provide so pivotal in this offense. But what kind of a challenge is it like for a quarterback like Jamison Niehaus when, it's run, 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 and then maybe you're going to pass. You don't really have an opportunity for that flow when, maybe 5 to 7 times you're passing a game. So how do you always make sure that you make those, like you're kind of alluding to, make those moments matter when you do go to the passing game?
Well, I think it's just like our running game. We obviously don't practice in this, so the kids don't get the reps like they do in some of our other stuff. But being a little more disciplined and full focused in practice in our passing game, and that's on us as coaches too, to make sure that our guys understand the importance of executing when a passing play is called. We've got to be efficient in that, because if we're solely just a run team, that makes it so much easier for us to be stopped. And I think it's just getting better, in our passing periods in practice, and having confidence and explaining to them what we're trying to do, and just getting better too. So, and I believe in our guys that, they've got the capability. We've got some guys that can catch passes and do some dangerous things with it. And I think Jamison can throw a heck of a football too. So, I think the pieces are there. We just got to get better.
Yeah. On that offensive line, I know that, anytime you start something new in the flex bone, there was a learning curve you mentioned, and now you've got guys who've ran this for a couple of years coming up, freshmen and sophomores and juniors who are going to be seniors now. So when you look at, Jackson Hinkle, Xavier Verdinez, Ignacio Macias, Carlos Estrada, gone from last year. You bring a few guys back, Jonathan Schaefer and Nathan Sinclair as well. But do you feel like it's going to be easier going forward, kind of plugging some of those offensive guys in, knowing that they've had the experience of kind of running this style of offense over the past couple of years?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I can remember there's a bunch of times where, where we've had to plug some guys in, and it's like, man, I didn't quite know what he's doing yet, and it's just that lack of experience and just, and reps and practice and all that. And we've got, we're pretty, like you said, we're losing a handful of guys to graduation and have to replace them, next fall. And, I got a lot of confidence in the guys that we have coming back, Austin Odom, Holden Rice, Hunter Fours, guys like that have played some snaps on the offensive line, that are smart kids that also understand what we're trying to do, from a mental standpoint. And, I think we've got a pretty good group of current ninth graders, so sophomores to be, that have been showing up this offseason and really learning. And, it's like I said, it's all player led. So I think that helps some of our older guys to grasp the whole, the big picture while, teaching it, to those young guys. And so I'm excited. I think we've got some options. It's just going to be a matter of, who wants to step up and, be ready to play varsity football and get rolling, because, it starts up there with them.
Yeah. Well, one of the two guys to have a pick for you last year was a ninth grader, Lars Schoenfelder. Obviously, he'll be back. JJ Schoenfelder always just impresses me with his bulk and commitment to the weight room. When you kind of assess that in the off season with, the skill players that you do have coming back, and Tyler England, the running back, who's just a phenomenal fit for the flex bone, and Jamison there at quarterback. I'm sure you do have a lot to be excited about, knowing all these different pieces are there for you.
Yeah. You named some good ones that have played a lot of football for us coming back, which is exciting. Guys like Drake Gersema as well, able to play safety, slot, ended up playing a lot of slot for us last year, did a heck of a job. Levi and Zane, returning two returners that can play receiver. Gaston Ferris, another one that played some fullback for us and defensive line too. And I think we've got some juniors coming up that, that we're excited about, Garrett Tatey and, Kobe Ruring. They had some time at linebacker as well. So, we're excited. We think we've got some pieces. we might have to move some guys around a little bit, but we're going to put our best players on the field and get after it.
One of those guys you moved around last year was Jacob Hayes. He was at quarterback, then he moves to tight end. He was your backup quarterback. I'm sure you're going to miss a utility guy like that who could still come in and throw a backup, quarterback touchdown pass like he did at Waterloo East. Having that versatility, what's that kind of mean to your program to have a guy like that who's able to step in and fill multiple roles?
That was crucial. We got a taste of it week one. I don't know what the heck happened, but Jameson, I think it was a hand cramp, and at first it was all funny. And I'm like, he might've just broke his wrist or something. I'm not sure, but, having Jacob, to come right in, anytime something weird happened like that, we didn't, it didn't skip a beat. He's a proven leader, smart kid that you can really count on. So, losing him's never good, or a player like that's never good. But it's just a matter of coaching up the next guys, and hopefully we can put some other guys into position to be reliable and do an excellent job for us.
Yeah, and special teams, we'll get to the IFCA Ken Winkler Award here in a moment, but, he's on your coaching staff, but yet award is named after him, and obviously helping coach your special teams last year was so pivotal. Aiden Smitherman had 3 kickoff returns for a touchdown, and then a guy you mentioned, Drake Gersma, I look at that Waterloo West game where he had couple of really great special teams returns because I believe Aiden was out sick that game. And so, how good do you feel about your special teams unit and learning from a guy like Ken Winkler?
I feel our special teams is better than it's ever been, to be honest with you. He's such a detailed guy, and he goes over to Ames to Iowa State practices all the time. He's going over there this afternoon, and he was telling me all about their special teams and how organized they are and what they do. And we were talking about how we're going to structure practice. And, it's an important part of the game. And he makes sure that our kids understand that it's not a time to take plays off, and that special teams is special. So if you're on this, there's a reason for it. And, if you don't take it serious, we're going to find somebody that will. So, we've lost games in special teams, and we've won games because of special teams. So just the importance of that and the details within our special teams that he provides is just been amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of the IFCA Ken Winkler Distinguished Service Award, our very own Butch Bear, PA announcer for so many years, 30 plus years, he spent time. He won that. I saw your picture with him. What's it meant to have somebody like Butch that, is, you can tell he's a Bobcat at heart.
He really is, and well-deserving honor. We got him down to the clinic awards luncheon. It was a room full of just all these award winners, and I think there was probably 7 or 8 other Ken Winkler Distinguished Service Award winners there as well that got recognized. And it was the state championship teams, and it was everything. And to be able to go up there and recognize him, it was 34 years. Is how long he's been doing it. I think he said his first season was 1994. And then I think 5 years prior to that, he was a spotter for the previous PA announcer. So, it was really cool. He was very thankful, but, I made sure to, tell him that it was, well-deserved. We're very, very thankful for his commitment to Bobcat athletics, and, not only just football. He does just about everything. As far as I've been told, I know he does baseball, and he's done state baseball, and back up for the Iowa Hawkeyes every once in a while, and like junior college volleyball, and you name it, he's probably done it. So, really cool experience.
Yeah, that is for sure. Last question for you: what's it mean to have support? For people like Butch, being a huge Bobcat fan. I know that you rely on parents to get meals for the team, and it takes a village to do not only what you do, but all the different sports and everybody from there to the laundry and all that kind of stuff.
It takes special people, that's for sure. Because it's a ton. It's a lot of work, but I think everybody involved's got the same goal, same vision. We want to create an elite experience for our kids to be a part of, in their 4 years of Bobcat football. And that's always the goal. And we're constantly finding ways to continue to improve it and be able to provide that for our kids. And, it's such you can learn so much from it. And, that's what we really want to provide to them.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Well, I know college spring ball is right around the corner for a lot of colleges, so no better time to talk Bobcat football. Adam, thanks so much for joining me.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right, that's Adam Goodvin, head football coach for the Marshalltown Bobcat football team. You've been watching KFJB-TV After Dark. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Don't miss any Bobcat athletics coverage right here on your home for the Cats, KFJB-TV.